My name is Patrick McCabe. Ever since I was a kid, my teeth were in terrible shape. They looked so bad that people would sometimes stare when I talked. Because of that, and a few other problems, I had to get my wisdom teeth removed much later in life than most people. Usually, people get that surgery done in high school or sometime early in college, but for me, it didn't happen until after I had already graduated. The surgery itself was painful, but the real nightmare started during the recovery. The pain was so intense that I couldn't sleep through the night without taking strong pain medication. Every few hours, the throbbing in my jaw would wake me up, sharp and unbearable. Eventually, I made a routine for myself. I set alarms and forced myself to wake up every 3 hours just to take another pill, switching between the two medications the doctor had given me. At first, it felt like a simple system to manage the pain, but after a few nights, something about waking up at those dark, silent hours began to feel wrong. The house would be completely quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every tiny sound stand out. Sometimes when I woke up, I had the strange feeling that I wasn't the only one awake in the house. And one night, when I opened my eyes to take the next pill, I realized something that made the pain in my jaw feel like the least frightening thing in the room. The pain during my recovery was unbearable. Sometimes the toothaches became so intense that I would literally sit there with tears in my eyes, just waiting for the medicine to work. Waking up every 3 hours became the only way I could survive the nights. Because of that, my sleep schedule completely fell apart. My body slowly got used to this strange cycle. 3 hours of sleep, then suddenly waking up in the middle of the night, then trying to sleep again. Even after the recovery started getting better, my body refused to return to normal. The worst part wasn't even the pain anymore. It was the sleep. After a while, I didn't even feel human. It felt like I was stuck in some strange loop, constantly waking up in the dark and falling back asleep again, over and over. One night, during the first week of my recovery, I woke up around 4:00 the morning to take my medication again. But this time, something felt different. After taking the pills, I just couldn't fall back asleep. My room felt unusually hot, much hotter than normal. I wasn't sure if it was because of my condition or because the air conditioner had stopped working, but the heat was making it impossible to relax. I kept tossing and turning for almost 10 minutes before finally deciding to open my bedroom window to let some fresh air in. The cool air helped a little, but sleep still refused to come. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, hoping that my body would finally give in to exhaustion. That's when I started hearing it. At first, it was just a faint sound coming from outside the window. Since I never slept with the window open before, I assumed it was just some normal outdoor noise that I wasn't used to hearing. But the more I listened, the stranger it began to sound. It wasn't like wind or leaves moving. It sounded sharper, almost like scratching. The best way I can describe it is the sound of claws slowly dragging across something hard. The noise kept repeating again and again, and after a moment it became louder. That's when I realized something unsettling. The sound wasn't coming from outside the yard or the street. It was coming from directly above me, from the roof. For a few seconds, the scratching moved slowly across the roof, as if something was walking up there, dragging its claws along the surface. Then it started moving farther away, slowly fading into silence. At the time, I tried to convince myself it was just some small animal wandering around up there, maybe a raccoon or some other critter. That explanation made sense. At least it did for a little while. But deep down, something about that sound didn't feel normal at all. My family's house sits deep in a quiet, wooded area, the kind of place where animals wander around at night without anyone noticing. Because of that, we had dealt with plenty of raccoons and other pests climbing onto the roof before. At first, I really wanted to ignore the scratching sound and just try to sleep again. But I knew if some animal managed to burrow into the attic, my dad would be furious in the morning. And honestly, I was already wide awake anyway. Sleep felt impossible. So, without thinking too much about it, I pushed the blankets off, got out of bed, and quietly walked through the dark house toward the garage. In the garage, I grabbed one of my dad's heavy-duty flashlights and headed to the back door. My bedroom was on the first floor near the back of the house, where the roof sloped down lower, so I figured that would be the best place to check first. The night air outside felt thick and still as I stepped into the yard. I aimed the flashlight up toward the roof outside my window and slowly swept the beam across the shingles. For a moment, I saw absolutely nothing. The roof looked empty and silent. I let out a quiet sigh and assumed the animal must have crawled somewhere else while I was coming outside. Still, I didn't want to take chances. I started walking slowly around the house, scanning the roof with the flashlight and trying to cover as much area as possible. All I really wanted was to scare the animal away. That should have been easy, if I could just find it. When I reached the front of the house, the roof was much higher, almost twice the height of the back. I raised the flashlight and kept searching the dark shingles. That's when I noticed something move at the very edge of the beam. My hand jerked the flashlight toward the movement instantly, and what I saw nearly made my heart stop. Standing there on the roof was a person, not an animal, not even a group of animals. It was a fully grown human being, completely naked. The pale figure stood frozen in the bright beam of my flashlight like it had been caught doing something it shouldn't. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then a scream burst out of me before I could stop it. The second I screamed, the figure suddenly moved. It reacted to the light like it was burning its skin. The person started running across the roof at an unbelievable speed. I tried to follow them with a flashlight, but they moved too fast, almost like something wild instead of human. I had never seen anyone run barefoot like that before, especially on loose roof shingles in the middle of the night. They rushed across the roof toward the side of the house where my bedroom was. Without even thinking, I sprinted around the house to cut them off. Looking back, I honestly don't know what I was thinking. I should have run back inside and locked the door, but something deep inside me refused to back away. As I ran through the dark yard, I started yelling for my dad, hoping he would wake up and come outside to help deal with the psycho standing on our roof. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. When I reached the back of the house again, I looked up just in time to see the figure crouching near the edge of the roof. When I saw the figure crouching at the edge of the roof, my first thought was simple. There was no way a person would actually jump from that height. Even from the lowest part of the roof, the drop to the concrete below was dangerous. Anyone who tried it would almost certainly break their legs. For a second, I assumed the stranger would climb down some other way. But before I could even finish that thought, the figure suddenly leaped. The body slammed into the concrete with a loud, sickening thud that echoed through the quiet yard. The sound alone should have meant broken bones. Maybe worse. I stood there completely frozen, my mind unable to understand what I had just seen. A human being had just thrown themselves off my roof in the middle of the night. For a split second, everything went silent in my head. But that moment of shock cost me. The man suddenly pushed himself up from the ground like nothing had happened. Then he charged straight at me. Before I could react, he slammed into me and knocked me flat onto the stones. The flashlight rolled away, and the darkness swallowed us. I felt his hands immediately clawing at my face, his fingers digging toward my eyes like he was trying to tear them out. His movements were wild and animalistic. I screamed and kicked with everything I had, but he was unbelievably strong. He kept grunting and spitting like some kind of rabid animal. Within seconds, I felt warm blood running down my face. My vision blurred as he kept scratching and grabbing at me. In that terrifying moment, lying there under that crazed stranger, I honestly believed I was about to die. Then suddenly, through my own screaming, I heard the back door of the house burst open. A second later, my dad rushed into the yard. He grabbed the attacker and yanked him off me while shouting and cursing like his life depended on it. I scrambled to my feet just in time to see the man break free from my dad's grip. His entire body was smeared with my blood, making him look even more horrifying under the dim porch light. But instead of attacking us again, the stranger suddenly turned and ran. He sprinted across the yard, climbed over our backyard fence with shocking speed, and disappeared into the dark forest behind our house. My dad and I just stood there in stunned silence, listening as the sound of his footsteps crashed through the trees, until even that faded away into the distance. That night ended in a hospital. My dad drove me there so fast he almost crashed the car twice. I had lost a lot of blood, and the doctors had to clean and stitch my face while giving me multiple shots to protect me from infections or diseases the attacker might have had. Somehow, by pure luck, my mouth and teeth were mostly untouched. After everything I had just gone through with my dental surgery, that almost felt like a small miracle. The police came later, but they were basically useless. The woods around our house were massive, and they said searching them would be nearly impossible. According to them, simple security cameras might have prevented the whole thing. Later on, my dad inspected the roof and found something disturbing. The man had actually been trying to dig into our attic, exactly the way a wild animal would. Strangely enough, the person most affected by everything wasn't me or my dad. It was my mom. She cried about that night again and again, terrified by the thought that someone had been crawling around on our roof in the dark. She was the one who immediately upgraded the security around the house. Even now, I still have no real explanation for what happened that night. I don't know who that man was, where he came from, or how he even found our house hidden deep in the woods. Those questions have stayed with me ever since, and something tells me I may never know the answers. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I still remember the sound of scratching on the roof. My house is unusual. At least that's what I call it. Most people, if they've seen it, would probably just say it's weird. Friends, guests, even a few girls I snuck in while my parents were away, all of them have said the same thing. I can't really show pictures. My parents would kill me, so I'll just explain what matters for this story. The part you need to know is the front hallway. Most houses have a porch or a little walkway before the door, maybe a canopy above it. Mine doesn't. Mine has a covered hallway that runs between two parts of the house, so you're technically outside but still trapped in a narrow space. It's like walking through a tunnel that leads straight to the front door. My bedroom is right on the first floor, just next to that hallway. From my window, I can see anyone standing at the front door, but only their back. I can watch them without being seen. Sometimes it feels like a neat little advantage. Other times, well, let's just say it's perfect for watching things you shouldn't. I had developed a habit at a young age of peeking out my bedroom window whenever someone rang the doorbell. It was like having my own little hidden camera. I could see who was there without them seeing me. That habit probably saved me a lot of surprises, though I never thought it would matter the way it did that summer. It was the beginning of summer, and my parents were out of town for the week. I decided to take advantage of the empty house and let my girlfriend, Anna, stay over for a few days. Normally, my parents would have been furious about that, but they'd met Anna many times, so it didn't feel like we were hiding anything dangerous. The first night was calm, just a quiet movie, some snacks, a few glasses of wine, and then sleep. The next morning we went for a swim in the pool, enjoying the freedom of the house all to ourselves. But the second night was different. Around midnight, we were lying in the dark, pillow talking, about to fall asleep, when I heard it, a strange noise, like something being dragged or a high-pitched screech. I froze and shushed Anna, straining to listen. The sound was coming from the driveway on the side of the house. My heart started to beat faster. That meant it was really close, too close. At first, I tried to rationalize it. It sounded like one of my dad's trash cans being moved. He sometimes leaves them in front of the garage, and I had noticed a few earlier that day. Maybe an animal was rummaging through them for scraps. But even knowing that, the sound of something moving around your driveway in the middle of the night, when you're alone, is impossible to ignore. I told Anna to stay put and whispered that I'd check on the raccoon or whatever it was. I grabbed a flashlight and got ready to step outside, trying to calm the rising panic in my chest. Every small noise seemed louder in the darkness. Every shadow seemed alive. That's when I realized whatever was out there wasn't just any animal. I stepped out of my room and slowly made my way to the front door. I flipped on the exterior lights, but they barely lit the driveway. Only the front yard and porch were visible. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door, hoping my presence alone would scare off whatever had been making all the noise. I stood on the porch, waiting for the sound of scampering, for something to dash across the yard, but nothing happened. The trash cans were quiet and the driveway was still. I convinced myself that maybe whatever it was had already left, but something in my gut told me that wasn't the case. Reluctantly, I clicked on my phone flashlight and stepped down the front steps, moving toward the driveway. That's when I saw it. One of the trash cans had been overturned. Its contents were scattered across the concrete, while the other two cans rested against the garage. My stomach sank. I groaned, knowing I'd have to clean it up. Even as I scanned the driveway with the flashlight, I saw nothing moving. Whatever had done this had disappeared without a trace. I started picking up the trash, throwing it back into the can, trying not to think about what had caused the mess. Once it was all cleaned, I rolled the cans back into the garage and locked the door, just in case. Finally, I returned to my room. Anna was still awake, but barely sleep was tugging at her. I leaned over and gave her a soft kiss on the forehead, trying not to disturb her, then settled back on my side of the bed. I was somewhere between sleep and wakefulness, that hazy state where you're half dreaming but can still pull yourself back into reality. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping sound, like metal scraping against glass. For a moment, I convinced myself it was just part of the dream. But something about the noise was wrong, too deliberate, too close. Instead of drifting off to sleep, I opened my eyes. The tapping hadn't stopped. My heart froze. It wasn't in my head, it was real, coming from somewhere in the room. I didn't move, just listened, trying to figure out what it was or where it was coming from. After a few seconds, it hit me. It wasn't inside the room at all. It was outside, right by my window. I forced myself out of bed and slowly crept toward the curtain. Peeking through the thin fabric, I could make out a figure at the front door, their back to me. My chest tightened with fear. The person was tapping lightly on the glass, again and again, as if someone should answer the door, but it was past midnight. All the lights in the house were off. I tried to see more, but the darkness kept their features hidden. Then, suddenly, they began to turn. My instincts kicked in. I ducked behind the curtain, heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I stayed crouched there for what felt like a full minute, terrified they might have seen me. Finally, I took a shaky breath and peeked again. I slowly pulled the curtain aside and screamed. Just inches from the glass, a face stared back at me. It was a man, but his skin looked shriveled, like it was melting, twisted and grotesque. I stumbled backward onto the bed, still screaming, adrenaline pulsing through every vein. I woke up fully then, panic taking over. I locked my bedroom door, grabbed my phone, and called the police, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. Whoever or whatever was outside my window, I knew, wasn't going anywhere. The cops showed up a little over 10 minutes later. Anna and I stayed locked in my room the entire time. I wanted to run to the front door to see if the creep was still out there, but Anna was gripping my arm so tightly I couldn't move. When the police finally came inside, I explained everything I had seen. They did a quick sweep of the house with me helping, checking every door and window. Nothing was broken, no forced entry, and the whole house was locked up. That was a relief, but it didn't explain why someone had been creeping around my house or where he had gone. After walking the perimeter with their flashlights and checking the yard, the officers told me they hadn't found anything unusual. One of them told me to call back if I saw the man again, then they left. The rest of the week passed without incident. I even told my parents, and to my surprise, they didn't seem too concerned. We don't live in a sketchy neighborhood, so their calm reaction made me question myself. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe it was just some homeless guy wandering around. But then the next few nights came, and I started waking up randomly in the middle of the night to strange noises outside my window. These weren't my trash cans being knocked over, like before. These were different sounds. I told my dad, and now he's planning to install security cameras around the house. Even so, I can't shake the feeling that the man who showed up that night wasn't just a one-time thing, and if anything else happens, I'll be ready to share it. What you're about to hear is an experience that almost made me lose my mind. Even months later, I still think about it often, and some nights, it still gives me chills. I'll get straight to it. I'm a single guy in my mid-30s, living alone in a small one-story house. There's just one bedroom, one bathroom, a living room, a kitchen, a dining area, and a tiny garage. That's it. Life is simple, quiet, and perfect for me. My job gives me total freedom. I can work whenever I want, No boss, no obligations, no schedule, just me and my choices. Freedom has always been important to me, and I've done my best to maximize it. Some people might judge my lifestyle as lazy or immature, but I don't care. Everyone has their own priorities. Still, with all that freedom comes its own problems. One of mine is my sleep schedule. It's awful. I'm most awake at night, when everything else is quiet, when the world sleeps. That's when I get my work done, when I feel alive. But late night hours also have a way of making small noises feel enormous. Shadows seem alive, and the empty corners of a house suddenly feel wrong. I usually stay up until dawn and sleep well into the afternoon. It's just how my body works. But one night, I was up way past 3 a.m., sitting at my desk, deep in work. The room was completely silent, just me, my thoughts, and the clicking of the keyboard. I was in the zone, completely focused. Then, out of nowhere, the silence shattered. I heard footsteps pounding down the hallway toward my bedroom, followed by 3 or 4 deafening bangs on my door, like the kind of force you'd expect from police breaking into a drug den. I shot up from my chair so fast I slammed my knee on the desk and knocked my monitor over. My heart was racing. Standing in my own house at 3 a.m., completely alone, and hearing someone pounding on your door, it was pure terror. I froze, eyes locked on the door, expecting it to burst open any second. But nothing happened. No intruder came in, no footsteps retreating, just silence. It was terrifying, and I was sure I hadn't imagined it. I don't know how long I stood there, unable to move. It was like sleep paralysis, except I wasn't asleep. Then, finally, I heard the footsteps retreating quickly down the hall. Someone had been there. My adrenaline spiked. Without thinking, I grabbed an empty beer bottle from my desk and ran to the door, screaming at the top of my lungs, chasing whoever had broken into my home. I didn't try to be quiet. Every scream, every step, was pure panic and survival instinct. I ran through the entire house screaming, but I never found anyone. My place isn't big, there aren't many hiding spots, but every room was empty. Every door and window was locked. My brief rush of confidence vanished instantly, replaced by a wave of fear so strong it made my hands shake. I sprinted back to my room, locked the door, and called the police. I sat in complete silence while waiting for them, straining to hear the faintest sound, but nothing came. When the officers arrived, we searched the house together. Still, no one was there. One of them suggested that maybe I'd overlooked an unlocked door or window. I wanted to scream. I knew everything had been locked tight. I couldn't explain how anyone could have gotten in or out without leaving a trace. I hadn't imagined it. The following week, I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, eat, or focus on work. My mind kept replaying the banging, the footsteps, the terror of thinking someone was in my home while I sat frozen at my desk. Even now, months later, I still can't fully explain it. The only theory I have is that I somehow missed an unlocked door or window, but if that's true, why would anyone break in only to run away immediately? It's a mystery I may never solve.